Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legionaries of Christ, and I teach theology. This is podcast on the Starcrest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 39. We're covering Intermarifica 3-4 on why the Church speaks about the media. We're really starting chapter 1, which, if you remember, Sister Hosea noted is more about the principles and not so much about the application, which will be in chapter 2. And the title of it is on the teaching of the Church. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican. Yesterday, paragraphs 1 and 2, we talked about the importance of media and the reality of this great power can be used for good or evil. Today, we're talking about the right and duty of the Church to use media and the importance of instruction of media people in ethics, right? People in the media and people who listen to media, instructing them on ethics. So paragraph 3, the Church has the right and obligation to use social media, right? So let's read this text. The Catholic Church says it was founded by Christ our Lord to bear the salvation of all men, and thus obliged to preach the gospel, considers it one of its duties to announce the good news of salvation, also with the help of the media of social communication, and to instruct men in their proper use. It is therefore an inherent right of the Church to have at its disposal and employ any of these media, insofar as they are necessary and useful for the instruction of the Christians and all its efforts for the welfare of souls. It is the duty of pastors to instruct and guide the faithful, so that they, with the help of these same media, may further the salvation and perfection of themselves and the entire human family. In addition, the laity especially must strive to instill a human and Christian spirit into these media, so that they may fully measure up to the great expectations of mankind and to God's design. So, right, that's pretty straightforward. The Church founded by Jesus, it's obliged to preach the gospel. It's one of its duties to announce the good news to the salvation, to all men, and all those things. So that's what we have. It's a right and duty of all those things, and that is important, right? We do it to save souls ultimately, right? How do we save souls? We spread the word. We inform people. We instruct them on using the media well, right? We teach them different things. We proclaim the charisma, the saving death and resurrection of our Lord, so that they are ready to receive it, so they're ready to be baptized, or so they're ready to move forward in the next step in life. So sometimes just they're ready not to make a bad step in life, because sometimes the real salvation, the real way of saving their souls is to avoid them making a bad choice, right? Not necessarily, hey, we're going to make them be baptized, but hey, we're going to help them avoid this sin. That's a way of saving someone's soul. And the Church has a right to use it like others do, right? And if you think about it, this time, in the 1960s, there was a whole series of different organizations, totalitarian regimes, the Iron Curtain, that were really restrictive of the Church and media, really restrictive of what the Church could do. I know most of all in Poland, just because I've watched way too many John Paul II documentaries, listened to biographies of life and things like that. But that was a reality all throughout that Iron Curtain. Even today, we have China, where a lot of things like that are happening, or other countries where there's really huge restriction on the Church. The Church can't use it. And the Church is still saying to those countries today, no, the Church has the right to use the media just like you do. It's not just the government. It's not just the authority. It's the Church that has the right to use the media as well. Now, obviously, other people too, individuals, not just the Church too, but this idea that the Church is against this media monopoly in these countries which are totalitarian. It's really an anti-totalitarian thing, right? They talk about it as the fourth estate, or they talk about the media and how the media can help society and all these different things if you read modern political philosophy. And the Church is really taking a stand to say, no, the media is the right of everyone. Most of all, it's talking about itself, but in general, it's still talking about everybody. And finally, it wants to talk about how the laity has a role to sanctify the world, right? And this includes in media, right? Practical aspects like this, right? So this podcast, if I drew it on my own, I don't know if I would do it, right? So if I could do it, Don Bettinelli at StarQuest SQPN, he takes care of a lot of the practical stuff. Like really, to upload it each day, I just had to click a few things, copy paste a few things from my Excel sheet, which is the master reading plan, not the printed one that you have that has more details on it that I didn't want to share with everybody, because it says who I hope to get for different introductions, and I don't want to bias people to say who they are, and other notes that I haven't been shared publicly. and I copy paste that into part of it, and then I, copy paste another thing for the description. If you notice, the description is basically the same each day, except for which paragraphs I'm reading varies. Things like that. There's just a few little clicks, and I do that, and everything else, there's a whole bunch that goes up behind the scenes to make it up within a few minutes. It's automated, but he set it all up. Don Bettinelli at SQPN set it all up. So paragraph 4 is talking about how we must instruct people in media on morality, and how we must instruct everyone on the moral use of the media. So let's read paragraph 4 here. For the proper use of these media, it is most necessary that all who employ them must be acquainted with the norms of morality and consciously put them into practice in this area. They must look, then, to the nature of what is communicated, given the special character of each of these media. At the same time, they must take into consideration the entire situation or circumstance, namely the persons, places, time, and other conditions under which the communication takes place, and which can affect or totally change its propriety. Among these circumstances to be considered is the precise manner in which a given medium achieves its effect. For its influence can be so great that men, especially if they are unprepared, can scarcely become aware of it, govern its impact, and if necessary, reject it. Right? So this is a great number talking about the morality in media, right? The importance of stories. Stories can be helpful. Stories can help people learn morality, right? So you have VeggieTales, and VeggieTales is great for like little kids to teach them morality. And I know VeggieTales is not Catholic, it's Protestant, but in general, most of VeggieTales is good. I can't think of anything that I'm super objectionable to. But then also, we have to realize that it's the teacher morality, not necessarily it's everything squeaky clean and nobody commits any sins, right? You can have failed, broken main characters, right? So you have the whole historical genre of film noir. And how does a film noir movie go? Well, every film noir movie, the general plot of film noir is a man makes a mistake. Often he sleeps with a woman or often he does something else, but it's not graphically displayed. And his whole life unravels because of that. It shows that that's immoral. It shows that that's the wrong choice, right? So that is a moral, ethical, good thing, right? That we have that. It is showing that, hey, there is something there, right? And so that is really important. I ominously feel kind of guilty reading this because I'm like, I probably have some of the duty to do this. I have a pretty wide reach in media. I have a doctoral degree in moral theology, so I know Catholic morality really well. Unfortunately, my challenge is I'm not the best as like a literature or like storyline or implication, things like that. I'm decent, but I'm by no means great at that part of it. And I realize that. That's why I'm not rating movies like Sister Hosea or Deacon Stephen Greydanis are, and things like that, right? I am simply, presenting Catholic teaching in the situation. And there's a lot of times you have to teach principles, not just the do this, don't do that, because there's a place for do this, don't do that, but we need to start with with principles. I teach a fundamental moral theology class for deacon candidates, guys studying to be permanent deacons. So I'm one of the youngest guys in the class, which is kind of odd as the professor. And when I do that, I'll see that they kind of start out, they want, hey, I want to know, do this, don't do that. And I'm like, no, that's not where we're going to start. We're going to start with like, what is a virtue? What's our goal? What's our ultimate goal? What's the ultimate good? What are we seeking? Why do we seek things? What does it mean, the object and circumstance? Those kind of things, the principles. And sometimes movies of sci-fi and fantasy can bring those out better than too concrete of circumstances because people think of the concrete and don't think of the universal. And there's also complex circumstances where, there might be a challenge. There might be an ethical challenge for a character. That can be interesting, an interesting story, right? And things like that. And we need to take into account situations, times, places, things like that. Like in North America, we nod our head, to indicate we approve, and we shake our head back and forth, rotating it at our neck to indicate disapproval. Recently, I've been going to physical therapy at a place where a large portion of the staff are of Indian descent. So they come from India either directly or like they're born of Indian parents. And a lot of them, I'll notice that instead of nodding their head, they kind of shake it back and forth. They don't turn their head like we do when we say no. They shake it back and forth as if they're putting an ear to each shoulder. Not all the way, but that kind of way of shaking it back and forth. And that indicates approval in that culture. And that's fine, right? And even still, even the approval, are you approving something good or bad? Because ethics, if you're approving something good, it's fine, right? You killed the big, evil, bad, mean, super villain guy. Great. And we're celebrating. Jane and John slept with her. No, we shouldn't be celebrating that. Jane and John are not married. That's part of the story, right? And things like that. So those are really important aspects to consider. So that's really important to think about in those aspects, right? So that's what we have to think about, right? And also media varies as well. Like, this is an audio medium. I can't point to things in the audio, right? I'm not there like I'm in a video and I can do hand gestures and point to things. Sometimes I am moving my hands when I'm talking, but you can't tell. And then beyond that, you also have, even if you're writing, there's different things, right? So I write for X. I write, a tweet, 200 characters. Very different from if I'm writing an academic article where it's 10,000 words. The vocabulary, the grammar, the way I'm speaking varies in those things. And I've written for a whole bunch of things between that, from 500-word, quick little church pop things to Plow, which is 1,500 words, kind of almost semi-academic stuff, right? And those type of things are all there, right? And media has a great influence. That's why it's so important. So that we'll conclude there today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast. You can You can donate to help StarQuest produce it and other great podcasts at sqpn.com/give. You can give one time, monthly, or join the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow, we are going to continue with the next paragraphs of Inter Mirifica, which is paragraphs 5 through 7 on the moral use and production of media. Please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which can provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. Go to svpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X for more information on the podcast, such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan.